Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is Craig Crash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott. You know him as B. Scott. Well, the Indianapolis Colts season, it ended in heartbreak, but this season for the Colts was one that exceeded, I know, my expectations. I don't know that we necessarily expected them to be even in the playoff mix. So today we're going to give our thoughts on the Colts season. We're going to discuss the biggest issue facing the team this offseason, and then we're going to give some bold predictions for next year. Also, it's playoff football time. We're going to talk about the NFL playoffs, who we think is going to win this weekend, wild card weekend, as well as who we think is going to be in the Super Bowl. Half of my Super Bowl pick isn't even possible anymore, Bengals and Eagles, and I don't think my other half of that pick is going to last super long either. So
yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, so not a great year for that prediction, but yeah, it's playoff.
Well, it started off strong with at least with the Eagles.
Yeah, the Eagles side of it started off
I think
strong.
you get a mulligan because when a team's starting quarterback goes down, that just changes the entire trajectory. So you get a mulligan for the Bengals because how could you have known Joe Burrow was going to go down with a season-ending injury?
I mean, he was injured to start the year when I made the prediction. So I mean, you're trying to give me an out, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it, but I can't in all good conscience take the out you're trying to give me. But we're back after our winter hiatus. Hope everyone had a happy holiday, a happy New Year, happy 2024. B. Scott.
You too.
B. Scott is not only ringing in a new year, he is another year older. So happy birthday as well, B. Scott. Hey, look, I'm gonna have a birthday here coming up soon too, as well. So I mean, Father Time is gonna grant me year 33. I'll be on level 33 here before too long as well. So I hope everybody had a happy and safe holiday. And hope everybody was safe and sound while they watched the Colts game on Saturday, because I was in a B-dubs in Ohio watching with my girlfriend, and it was sad at the beginning, happy there for the middle stages, and then at the end, heartbreak for the horseshoe. Yeah. So
gosh, just to imagine, CJ Stroud, incredible future, I believe. Well, I honestly believe he has what it takes. And that goes right back to even in college. Like, Ohio State fans are like, man, we just could not live up to expectations this year. It's like, maybe you had your expectations a bit too high, because I think your team really got shown who it was, because CJ Stroud is just that good.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, like, we were talking about, whether or not he was going to end up with the Colts, last year, and I definitely
loved it.
Yeah, would have been amazing. Obviously excited. Hopefully, AR can come back healthy and strong. But CJ Stroud is showing he was every bit as good as showing that all those reports that he whatever test that was that said he wasn't smart enough or whatever it was where it was all hogwash. But
he's smart where it counts. Okay. Who cares? He can't figure out the square root of 372. Guess what? Neither can I.
Hey, he ain't here to play school. Okay. In the words of Cardale Jones,
true. He can read a defense. He can sling the ball. He can put it right where it needs to be. I mean, what more do you need? I don't think you need a mathematician out there trying to do equations in his head. I think that might be the issue with some of these guys. They're trying too hard, whereas he plays it.
Yeah.
So
just a real quick recap for those of you who may have missed it on Saturday. We had to live it for those of us that watched it. So if you missed it and you're a Colts fan, we're going to make you relive this if you didn't get to watch it on Saturday night. First quarter got off strong. Colts opened the scoring with a 38-yard field goal from Matt Gay. The Texans answer right back on their first offensive play of the game with a 75-yard strike to C.J. Stroud to Nico Collins. That was when I was walking in the B-dubs. I was like, oh, hey, look, the Texans just scored as I'm walking in. This is a great omen for how the rest of the night is going to go. Second quarter, just after the 2-minute warning, C.J. Stroud finds Andrew Beck wide open in the back of the end zone to put Houston up 14-3 after another Matt Gay field goal. This one from 52 yards away. The game was 14-6 at halftime. In the third quarter, Jonathan Taylor breaks off a 49-yard touchdown run. Gardner Minshew finds Mo Alley-Cox for the 2-point conversion, and everything is all tied up at 14. Kaimi Fairbairn hits a 51-yard field goal, to put the Texans back ahead 17-14, heading into the final stanza. And then in that fourth quarter, Matt Gay connects on his third field goal of the game to tie the game yet again at 17. With 6:20 to play, Houston pulls back ahead with a Devin Singletary 3-yard touchdown run, but the extra point attempt is missed. So down 6. Everything is shaping up for the Colts to potentially take the lead. They drive all the way down to the Texans' 15-yard line. It comes down to 4th and 1. Gardner Minshew's pass hits Tyler Goodson in the hands. It falls incomplete, and the Colts season comes to an abrupt end. The Texans win 23-19. The 19 comes from the Texans punter running out of the back of the end zone on the last play of the game to avoid any sort of mishap there. So 23-19 is your final. C.J. Stroud throws for 264 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor ran 30 times for 188 yards and a touchdown. He was not on the field for the final play of the season. The Colts were 1 for 12 on 3rd and 4th down. And looking back at this game, for starters, of course, I'm with the contingent of fans that thinks that Jonathan Taylor should have been on the field for the 4th down play, especially with the night that he was having. Shane Steichen came out and said that we had our pass catching running back on the field. I mean, Jonathan Taylor
would have had Trace Sermon out there before.
Yeah. Well, and Jonathan Taylor does just fine catching passes. I don't understand the logic there.
The only reason I could see that they did not is because he literally carried the team down the field and his legs were.
And he probably would have garnered more attention on that particular type of play too.
Right. You're not expecting Goodson out there rolling. But yeah, if Jonathan Taylor rolls out like that and is wide open, he's not going to be wide open. So there's a little bit, but I feel like I would have gone, I don't know.
Yeah. But everyone ripping the call.
Couldn't you have done it with Josh Downs?
That would have been a good call.
Or sure-handed.
Yeah. But everyone ripping the call on how everything played out is acting as if converting that 4th down ensures the touchdown. Everyone forgets that the Colts were 0 for 2 in the red zone prior to that drive. They'd been settling for field goals all night, aside from that JT touchdown run. So it's not as if that 4th down and 1 meant, oh man, that was the game. I mean, it was the game because that's how it ended, but it did not 100% guarantee that the Colts were going to then score a touchdown in the next few plays. So I mean, it is what it is. So it's really easy to boil everything down to that drop. But when you're 1 for 12 on 3rd and 4th down and kicking field goals in the red zone, it's not a good recipe for success. You're not going to win many games when you're not converting 3rd downs. You don't convert 4th downs. You're kicking field goals instead of scoring touchdowns in the red zone. The offense was really sluggish in the first half. There's a lot of other things that went wrong in this game aside from what happened with Tyler Goodson at the end of the game. And the Texans played the more complete game, or the better team, in my opinion. I mean, had the Colts won, I would have been ecstatic, obviously, but I wouldn't have left that game being like, oh yeah, the Colts were the better team. The Colts deserve to win the AFC South. I would have been like, oh yeah, the Colts got away with one, so that's pretty cool. But and I'll take it. But whenever that happens, I always feel a little guilty because I'm like, well, the better team didn't win, but that's just how it goes. But we'll get into it a little bit more in a sec. As far as how we boiled the season down and what we thought about the season as a whole. But, we didn't expect the Colts to be in this spot. And I feel like whenever we, break down the Pacers or the Colts, we're always talking about, we're always talking about the team in this light. But I really am optimistic about the future. I really do think that this was the start of something. This was not the drop on 4th and 1 wasn't the end of an era. It was the beginning of, okay, you know what? This is the start of what this team can do down the line. So at the end of the day, does it stink? Yes. Is it, awful? Would it be great if the Colts had won and been in the playoffs? Yes. Do I think they were destined to go deep in the postseason. Not really. I mean, they would have played the Browns at home. They did almost beat the Browns. Yeah, and it probably should
That's
have beat
one
the
that every
Browns.
Colts fan really wants back because of
Right.
the officiating in that game.
Right. So I mean, so even if you want to say, okay, this time around the Colts beat the Browns, they're the 4 seed. So if everything plays out chalk wise, they would be playing Baltimore, and I guess they did beat Baltimore the first time around. But if
one
you
of the
think,
only teams to beat
right,
Baltimore.
right, but I don't know. I guess you can kind of turkey math yourself into being like, yeah, well, they would have made the AFC Championship. They would have been there. But I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm coming at it from a standpoint of like, I didn't expect this team to be here anyway, so it's kind of house money. Where as opposed to, I'm sure there are some fans that are like, kind of got the tin foil hat on. They're doing the Charlie Day thing in their man cave. So like, you know what? We would have beat the Browns because we should have beat the Browns the first time, and we beat the Ravens when we played them. So we would have played the Ravens if everything
just would have beaten the Browns if the officials hadn't screwed
right.
us
Yeah,
over.
we
wouldn't even had to win this game.
Right,
we would have won anyway.
Exactly.
We would have been in the playoffs.
So
a whole bunch of what ifs. For me, this is gonna be. This is probably gonna be a very unpopular opinion, but I'm almost glad the Colts did not win this game. Look, this coming into this season, this was a team that was predicted to win about 4 games by experts, and they're well ahead of schedule. But I don't know how much that has to do with. I mean, the AFC South ended up being not bad, other than Jacksonville
more
falling
even,
apart.
more even than we
More
thought.
even, yes. I will. Yeah, that's better. But yeah, the Colts were definitely ahead of schedule. They surprised a lot of people, and yes, it does hurt to be that close to the playoffs and that close to a division title and not come up with it. But look, the Colts are still technically in a rebuild. They're still rebuilding. You can't. Yeah, Houston's done it, but Houston also traded the farm to be able to have the 2nd and 3rd overall picks in the draft, and those were complete game changers for them. And then they also hit on other draft picks, so that's fine. But look, the Colts were all coming up into this season. Colts fans were like, oh man, it would be great to get Marvin Harrison Jr. It'd be great to get Marvin Harrison Jr. It'd be great to be bad enough to be able to get him. And a lot of people thought that. A lot of people thought that the Colts were going to be that bad. So now when you know that the Colts are still technically in a rebuild, they need pieces still. They're not a complete team. They're not one player away from making a run at the Super Bowl. They're not, they're a handful of players away. And we all know Chris Ballard's track record with spending in free agency. So don't even go think, the Colts have like the 3rd most cap space to spend. Are they going to spend it? Oh. No. They're going to give some probably to Michael Pittman Jr., and that's about it. It's better that they lost because now they will be picking in it's a better place to be picking. Rather, you're picking at 15. You make the playoffs, you beat the Browns. Guess what? You're picking in the 20s now. There is like, well, it's only like 5 spots. No, that's a big difference. That is a difference between a potential player that fell just outside of the top 10 that, a bunch of teams are skipping on all of a sudden and he falls right to you, to, well, hopefully this guy that we pick here in the 20s is capable of contributing on day 1. You're looking at somebody that might need a little bit of time, but at 15, you're more likely to be able to land an impact player still. And that's what the Colts need at this point. They need an impact player. And looking
when you're at 20, that's when Chris Ballard is looking to trade back.
Exactly. It's not a tempt. It's not tempting. Right now he's in a position where he was a couple of years ago when they were, I believe, 13, and they traded that pick away for DeForest Buckner. Well, that was a game changer. So the Colts can be in a situation like that again. And also when you're looking at the draft and the different mock drafts, there is a ton of talent right around there. And if you look at some areas of need, potentially like wide receiver, there's a couple of players that fall right there. For instance, a guy that just played in the national championship game, Rome Odunze. That's a guy that is a a game changer potentially for that Colts offense paired with Anthony Richardson. If you need a corner, well, guess what? Cooper DeJean is there from Iowa. I mean, there's a lot of really good options here at 15. So I think it is better that the Colts lost this game. And I'm probably in the minority thinking that, but I'd rather think big picture. Look, we all want the Colts to be Super Bowl contenders. But getting into this is very similar to the Pacers from a few years ago, where the Pacers would get into the playoffs as like the bottom seed and get pushed out in the first round. And then they were on the outside looking in on franchise changing players. That could be that's the route the Colts were headed to this year. And it's an area where teams can get stuck, to be honest. You know, you have your teams that are the cream of the crop that are always going to be contending for a Super Bowl. But then you have your teams that are just kind of middling around there, just getting into the playoffs and then not really having much game changers in the draft, getting back into the playoffs, getting bounced early. If you really want the Colts to be contenders, them not making it this year is the best thing to get the best potential player for this rebuild to become contenders in the long run.
Yeah, it's like it's best case scenario. You still have a top 15 pick while still we were competitive and almost made the playoffs.
Bright. You know the future is bright because of how well they played this year. And then you look at next year's schedule. Next year's schedule is shaping up to be a cakewalk. I mean, there's no reason the Colts. I mean, okay, who on that schedule outside of AFC South teams truly
they play the AFC East. I mean the Bills, the Dolphins.
The Bills. Okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you those two.
The Jets with Aaron Rodgers. Okay, they'll be better. They'll be better, and they have that. And they have a better defense. Yeah. Devontae. Okay, do you think they'll have Devontae Adams?
I think the Jets will get Devontae Adams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if the Raiders don't go with Antonio Pierce.
NFC. I will say this: next year's schedule, because they have the NFC North and they have the AFC East. There's a lot of it's a lot of
the AFC West.
Huh?
They play all the West teams too. Oh, they don't play the Chiefs, but they play like the Broncos, the Chargers, the Raiders as well.
No, they shouldn't. I think that was just because that's who they could have played with how the rest of the division shook out. Okay. Because the way that it go, well, how does that go? Because the scheduling goes, it's like they play. I know that they play. They won
all the division winners.
You play one whole division from each side. Then you play one. How does that work? I used to know how that all shook out.
Yeah, I used to as well, but life.
Right. Yeah.
You have to make room in your head for other things.
Right. Right.
I was in college. I could have that kind of information in my head, but now I can't.
Yeah, I was like, I do know that they play the whole AFC East and they play the whole AFC or NFC North, which what I was gonna say is a lot of like wild card teams, because the Lions show you that they can either be really good or they can have an off week and lose to the Bears. You can have the Bears who can go out there and play you really well or really poorly. You have the Vikings who went on a crazy run with Josh Dobbs. You have the Packers who are good, a playoff team. You've got the AFC East who have, who knows what the Patriots are, whatever they'll be, but you have the Jets who could be either really great or who knows what they'll be with Aaron Rodgers. You have the Bills. Who knows which Bills team you're going to get? Are you going to get the one that lost to the Broncos on a last-second field goal, or are you going to get the one that went into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs? You have the Dolphins. Are you going to get the Dolphins team that beat the Cowboys, or are you going to get the ones that got absolutely slobber-knocked by the Ravens? So it's just, could it be a cakewalk? Sure. But it also could be really daunting, because those are two divisions that are like, yeah, we could be awesome. Who knows which one you're going to get this week? So it could be really tough, and it could be. So I guess that kind of bodes well, because it's kind of a coin flip every week. But I don't know. It's just, it could be good, it could be bad. But I think those are all teams that are no. It's not going to be like it was this year, where it was NFC South and AFC. What was it? NFC South and AFC North, right? Yeah, because they played the Steelers and the Browns and the Bengals. So yeah, which heck, that was. So I guess arguably, it's kind of just the same because the AFC West or AFC North was arguably the toughest division because it's the first division since the merger that everybody finished above 500 and the Colts still were in the mix to play the playoffs. So maybe that's a good omen for the schedule next year. But
yeah, but I mean, like I said, I'm on the minority and thinking that it was a good thing that the Colts lost, and now they are locked in at 15. It's a good place to be because you may have some teams at the back end of the top 10 that have their eye on another player and are willing to fall back. You might have you have your ability to trade that pick for a star, like a seasoned vet, need be, what like the Colts have done already with DeForest Buckner. There's options where sitting at 15, it's a really good place to be in. So just look big picture. That's all you gotta do. Look big picture. Yeah, it hurts. You were that close to winning the division, but big picture, it's for the best.
Yeah. Real quick before we move on, because we do need to move on. I think the way the schedule goes, I was just trying to think it out and math it in my head. I think the way it goes is you have your division games. That's 6 games right there because it's your 3 other division opponents. So that's 6. Then you've got you play 1 full division from each conference. So that's 8. So that gives you to 14. In the past, you would just have 1 other game apiece against the team that so you'd have so if you play, so next year the Colts play the AFC East, then you would play, and the Colts finished what, second? They end up second in the AFC North or AFC South this year, or AFC or third. What did they actually end up? But they would have had to ended up third because of the Jaguars. So that means they would. So they play the entire AFC East, which means they would play the third place team from the AFC West, and then the third place team from the AFC North. So that would get you to 16 games, and then you play. The Colts ended up being the 10th seed in the AFC, so that means they'll play the 10th seed from the NFC next year.
Yeah, so I know they have the Chargers on their schedule next year.
I think they ended up with the Broncos.
And I saw the Chargers and the Broncos and the Raiders.
I swear it's because they'll go into the last week. Any of those 3 teams could have been third. I know. I should have. You know what? I should have shared. I saw the schedule. I saw the schedule, like the 2024 opponents thing, flash up, and I should have shared it on the 3C Media page, and I should have done it because then we could just go back to that as a reference. But as you look that up, we're gonna move on here. So we talked a lot about next year, and we will talk. All right,
here it is.
Okay.
Your home opponents next year: Texans, Jags, Titans, Steelers, Dolphins, Bills, Lions, Bears. Away, AFC South, Giants, Patriots, Jets, Packers, Vikings, Broncos. Okay. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I saw one of these logos and thought it was the Chargers when I was just flipping through my phone.
Well, I know that it could have ended up because of the because it could have ended up any number of those teams could have been the third team in the AFC West. I think that's how it would have shaken out. But
okay.
So that's looking at next year. Let's take one last look at this year. We're gonna sum up the Colts season here, kind of tie a bow on it. We usually do one word to describe a season. We're gonna give you a few more words to describe the Colts season this year. So I tasked us both with sum up the Colts season in 4 words or less. And for me, those 4 words are 2024 playoffs or bust. I know it was tough because I was going to say 2025 because that's when next year's playoffs will technically take place. But then I was like, that might be a little confusing. So we'll just say 2024 playoffs because it'll be the 2024 season. The Colts ranked 30th in points per game last season. They were 11th this season. And this was an improvement. The improvement was in spite of losing 4th overall pick Anthony Richardson due to injury. Gardner Minshew did end up setting his career high in passing yards with 3,305. He also had 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. The Colts finished 10th in rushing this season. They were 23rd a year ago. JT and Zach Moss both ran for 700-plus yards in abbreviated seasons. They also inked Jonathan Taylor to a 3-year, $42 million extension in October, putting the training camp turmoil in the rearview mirror. You had Zaire Franklin, who led the league in tackles with 179, the first Colt to do so since Shaq Leonard in 2018. Indy was 5th in the league in sacks with 51. They were 11th last year with 44. Indy was +2 in turnover differential, which lands them in the top half of the league in that category. They were -13, last in the league last season. So a lot of big improvement from last season to this season. A lot of good numbers, a lot of numbers moving in the right direction. And when we did the midseason grades, I talked about if you projected out Anthony Richardson's stats from his 4 games this season, they would rival that of CJ Stroud's. I think I did his 2 full games. If you were to project that out, they would be kind of the same as what CJ Stroud's were at that time at the midpoint of the season. And seeing what the Colts did this season offensively, with a backup quarterback, with JT out a chunk of the year, there's no reason to think that the horseshoe can't be in the mix next season with all those guys healthy, especially in an AFC South that looks to be wide open again. I mean, I don't think anybody going into next year, I mean, obviously it's fresh off the regular season. Who knows what these teams are going to do in the offseason, but, Titans just fired Mike Vrabel. They're hitting the reset button again. King Henry probably on his way out. He was thanking the fans on Sunday. You've got the Texans, who they look to kind of be the team that's going to be the team to beat next year in the division. You've got the Jaguars, who knows what direction they'll be in next year, because they had a disappointing year. So the division looks to be kind of up for grabs again, and there's no reason to think that the Colts can't be in the mix again next season if AR is healthy, if JT is healthy, if they can keep everybody in healthy, which I know it's football. I know that won't be entirely 100%, but I mean, there's no reason to think this Colts team can't be in the playoffs next year, and I think that is kind of should be the expectation. Is not. I mean, I'm not saying 2 seed, 3 seed. They should just be in the playoffs next year. It should be the expectation.
Yeah, with the way this season shook out, my 4 words are: what if without injuries? The Colts saw their fair share of injuries this year. There was a period of time Jonathan Taylor was out at the beginning of the season with an ankle injury, and in the end part of the season after having thumb surgery. How would they have performed if they had a healthy Jonathan Taylor all season? And then the biggest what if injury wise was Anthony Richardson. Gardner Minshew, yes, had a career year. I think he did well for what he's capable of. Best backup the Colts have ever had, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, maybe outside of Jacoby Brissett.
I mean, without Curtis Painter, they don't get Andrew Luck, so I'm just saying.
Oh, well, it was Kerry Collins, Curtis Painter, and they almost lost on Andrew Luck because of Dan Orlovsky.
Yeah.
But the progression that you saw from Anthony Richardson just through the few games that he did play in, how would that have been as the season progressed? What would have been different, like that Cleveland Browns game, different element that's brought to the table with Anthony Richardson, the Houston Texans game. I don't know how much difference would have been there because the Colts had no answer for Nico Collins, but again, still just a lot of what ifs on the injury front.
For sure. And like I said, I mean, what if if you can get them all, everybody healthy next season, they're gonna be a tough team next year, and it makes you really excited. There's some cause for optimism going into next season. Looking at some awards, I thought it might be fun to give out an MVP and Rookie of the Year. And I don't know, I think I took the 2 easy ones here, but I just kind of wanted to give a shout out to these 2 players because they had such great seasons this year, and I wanted to give them some extra love. My MVP for the Colts season, Zaire Franklin. I feel like there's a lot of ways you could go here. I mean, the actual MVP is basically just the quarterback's award now, so I'm not gonna go that route, even though you could talk your way into Gardner Minshew. With what he was able to do. Minshew having his career best season in yards, taking over for AR. You could go JT coming back and having a solid year. But how could you ignore what Zaire Franklin did this season? 179 tackles, led the league. First Colt to do so since 2018, as we mentioned. He was, you know what? I can't remember who led the league in solo tackles, but he can go flip sand because he literally beat Zaire Franklin by one solo tackle. He had 108, and Zaire Franklin ended up with like 107. So that's annoying. But he was literally one solo tackle away from leading the league in that category as well. And we talked about it in the preseason. Zaire Franklin last year was towards the top of the league and the team statistical category in tackles. But because of the fact that Bobby Okereke was leaving, the Colts needed him to step up in an even bigger way, and boy, did he answer the bell. Boy, did he say, you know what, guys? I'm going to put this defense on my back, and I'm going to just take the reins. And he did an amazing job, and he rose to the occasion and was a big reason why the Colts defense, was able to be, there are some categories where the Colts defense didn't make some improvements, but there were other categories where they shined in, and he was a big reason for that. So Zaire Franklin, Colts MVP this year, just was an absolute monster.
So, yeah, it's Zaire Franklin, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my runner-up, okay? Just because, yes, I'm picking Zaire Franklin as well. I mean, he was all over the place. Not surprised. Really, mine, I'm going to give my MVP I want to give it to, it's kind of a toss-up between EJ Speed and actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give it to DeForest Buckner. A lot of people want to say, yeah, I don't know how much of a future he has with the Colts. Look, I thought DeForest Buckner was multiple times throughout the season as disruptive as an Aaron Donald. Was he constantly getting sacks? No, he wasn't. But at the same time, he was commanding these double teams that were opening up other players, other guys on his team. He got a lot of pressures on quarterbacks. He was really setting things up for that defense to force offenses to have to move a lot quicker than they were wanting to. And then, obviously, if you want to look again, Grover Stewart showed us just how important he is during the 6 games he was suspended this year. That big body that takes up a ton of space on the line and opens things up for players like DeForest Buckner. But I'm going to go with DeForest Buckner as my runner-up for the MVP, and obviously Zaire Franklin as my MVP. Kind of funny picking defensive players on a defensive unit that kind of struggled this year.
I was going to say, yeah, and that's one of the area I think that they need to look at, which is really surprising because, Gus Bradley is usually a defensive guru, and I think that is going to be one thing.
Bradley got the vote of confidence in the press conference with Shane Steichen the other day. I have full confidence in Gus Bradley. Ooh.
Yeah.
We'll see. Shane Steichen did say he likes continuity.
Rookie of the year. It's got to go to Josh Downs. Set the franchise rookie record for receptions in a season with 66 catches. He ended up with 68. He was previously held by Bill Brooks with 65. Marvin Harrison had 64 in his rookie year. Josh Downs ended the season with 68 catches for 771 yards and 2 touchdowns. Michael Pittman caught 70% of the passes he was targeted on. Downs was right there behind him at 69%. Hopefully he can get more of a workload next season because he's shown that he's the complementary piece we wanted for Michael Pittman. When Alec Pierce was drafted last year, we were like, oh yeah, we need more weapons for at the time Matt Ryan and Alec Pierce. I think Alec Pierce is okay, but he's more of the wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. Josh Downs has shown he can be the wide receiver 2. And I think that he's going to have a great career with the team. And I think he's, or at least, based on what we see in year 1, obviously, we need to see more next year as well. But based on year 1, he's got a bright future ahead of him. And he will, and hopefully, like I said, they can get him more of a workload because they didn't target him very much. Not as many touchdowns as you would have liked to see. That's really across the board. Pittman only had 4. Downs only had 2. So maybe next year they can get both of those guys a little bit more in the mix, in the red zone even. But yeah, just what a year Downs had. a fantastic year, and like I said, hopefully can be more in the mix next year.
So yes, it's Josh Downs, because I mean Anthony Richardson only played a few games, so can't go there. There weren't many rookie contributors except one. Outside of Josh Downs, the runner-up I'm going to go with is offensive tackle Blake Freeland. Blake Freeland always stepped up anytime he needed to fill in for injuries. I mean, he's ended the season as a starter. I When they drafted him, I was very happy that they drafted him. I thought there was a lot of upside to him, and it's starting to show. I think he's going to be a solid offensive lineman for this Colts team going forward. Actually, I feel like he has a brighter future than Bernard Ryman, to be honest. So my runner-up for rookie of the year is definitely Blake Freeland for stepping up and stepping in when needed and performing fairly well at that.
Now we touched on a little bit, some issues that could be facing the team next year or in the offseason. What the Colts can address now as we focus towards the offseason and on towards next season. And my biggest issue for the Colts to address in this coming offseason, that's Anthony Richardson's health. Richardson was lost for the season in Week 5 after injuring his shoulder versus the Titans. He missed the Baltimore game due to a concussion sustained in Week 2 versus Houston, and that was the fear going into the season. Was his play style was going to be so reckless that it's going to get him injured and it's going to get him into these situations where he's going to miss, games. And I mean, look, when you have a quarterback with his play style, you're going to have obviously injuries. It's going to happen. Even if it wasn't his play style, you're going to have, it's football. You're going to have injuries. But, the Colts, I mean, obviously top 5 pick spin on them, that's an investment. And so they need to, we need to find some sort of like happy medium here. Last offseason, Tua trained with a jiu-jitsu coach and learned how to distribute his weight and energy while falling. This, of course, after he had a bunch of concussions last season. The University of Florida has a great baseball program. Send him down there to learn how to slide. Be like, hey, you're going to go down there for a week, and I don't think you need a week to learn how to slide, but hey, just for good measure, we'll go down there for a week, learn how to slide, do something, throw out a first pitch at a University of Florida baseball game, and just kind of make the rounds and learn how to slide. Like I said, injuries are going to happen, especially with a mobile quarterback. I get it. But you can't tell me that even with how well Minshew played this season, that AR's versatility and athleticism wouldn't have been worth one more win and would have gotten the Colts to the postseason. If everything played out the same, and I know it's tough to say that because you're like, okay, if it was, Anthony Richardson, teams would have game played differently. The Colts would have game played differently. Who's to say that the game would have turned out the same? But, I mean, if you just basically switch out the quarterbacks and put AR in there instead of Minshew, like, I think that would be worth at least one more win. And the Colts are probably in the playoffs right now. And I think, like I said, sure, will he miss games next season too? I'm sure he will. But I think the Colts really need to figure out a way to combat that. How do we do our best to ensure that there's not going to be as many injuries next season? Can we, like I said, teach him how to slide, teach him how to, fall better, which sounds silly, but I mean, just something to make sure that he's maybe protecting himself a little bit better so that it doesn't happen quite as much next season.
Yeah. So for me, the one area of need that the Colts need to focus on, the defensive secondary. They need to, I mean, look, Kenny Moore is a free agent. Love Kenny Moore. Well, love what he's done for the community, but it might be time to let him walk. It might be time to really look at revamping that. I think one of the pieces you can definitely build around is Juju Brents. Otherwise, every other starting spot, every other position in the defensive secondary is up for grabs, in my opinion. The Colts struggled this year to stop teams' number 1 wide receivers. You have somebody, I mean, even last year with Stephon Gilmore, having a player like that, I don't think Nico Collins has as big of a game against the Colts the other night. That's what the Colts are missing right now in the secondary, and that is why they need to focus on that, because you look at the AFC South right now. I mean, obviously, the road now goes through Houston, folks, for the AFC South and for the foreseeable future. I mean, they've got some good wide receivers down there and a good quarterback. You look at next year's schedule, they got the Raiders again. If Devontae Adams is still there, Colts could not stop Devontae Adams. They just struggled week in and week out with teams that had a solid, a legitimate number one wide receiver. So the Colts need to look at fixing that problem if they want to be able to contend for a spot in the playoffs, a division title, and eventually be viewed as Super Bowl contenders. You have to be able to stop a team's number one.
One final thing to touch on with the Colts, it's a bold prediction for 2024, and now that I think about it, I was I kind of wish I would have gone more with something statistical based, because I don't think that mine is really a bold prediction.
So we're one game away from winning it.
Yeah, exactly. So my bold prediction is that the Colts will win the AFC South next season. If they can have a healthy year of Anthony Richardson, I know that I've sounded like a broken record, but if they can get AR healthy, if Jonathan Taylor's healthy, and they can get Josh Downs more in the mix, I mean, the offense will be absolutely nasty. The defense needs to improve for sure, as we've talked about. They were 24th in yards allowed per game this season, 28th in points allowed per game. They'll play the AFC East and NFC North next season, so that's some solid quarterbacks and offenses, so they'll have to, go up against that secondary will get tested again. So that that'll be something to look at. So I think that's kind of what makes it a little bit of a bold prediction, just because that's gonna be that's gonna be that's gonna be Tua, that's gonna be Josh Allen, that's gonna be Jared Goff, that's gonna be Jordan Love, it's gonna be maybe Kirk Cousins. I don't know if it's going to be Kirk Cousins. He might be out the door in Minnesota, but could be Caleb Williams. In Chicago. So it's
even Justin Fields,
Aaron Rodgers. So it's a lot of good quarterbacks at minimum. Even if you don't think the teams overall are gonna be, even if like we said earlier, all those teams are kind of coin flips. You don't know what you're gonna get week to week. I mean, still, those are some great quarterbacks that you're gonna be playing. So the team's gonna have to be on it. So I think the schedule does get tougher. I mean, yes, they did play the AFC North this year, so that which was the toughest division in football. So that did obviously ramp up what was otherwise a really easy schedule. But otherwise, I mean, their schedule is going to be a little tougher next year. Going to play some, a lot better quarterbacks. They're not going to be playing Bryce Young, Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, although they did lose to Derek Carr. It's going to ramp up a little bit. But yeah, that's my bold prediction. I think, like I said, not so bold in the fact that they, like you said, were one game away from winning it this year, but bold, I guess, in the fact that their schedule will be a smidge tougher next year. And I think they'll be, it'll be a little bit of a tougher road. So, the Colts win the AFC South next season, in my opinion.
All right, so my bold prediction is more about the offseason than about next season. My bold prediction is that the Colts will stock up on talent and weapons for Anthony Richardson. Michael Pittman Jr. is a free agent. I think the Colts will bring him back. I think he wants to be back as a Colt. He did. It is kind of concerning that he did mention he wants to test the free agent waters and see what's out there. But I think the Colts will definitely stockpile up on more weapons, even if it means building that around Josh Downs. I wouldn't even be surprised to see, and this would be a bold prediction, but the Colts move up in the draft by a few positions to go try to grab one of those top wide receivers, or better yet, tight end Brock Bowers. Because let's be honest, the Colts tight end room is a bunch of dudes that would be buried on depth charts across the NFL. Nobody is consistent enough The Colts need to find them another, I heard somebody say, Colts need to find another Jack Doyle. If not a little bit better than Jack Doyle, but they're right. They need to find another Jack Doyle. I think you need to try to make some moves to get up there and get Brock Bowers. If you are able to stockpile quality weapons around Anthony Richardson, I think then that does limit the chances of him getting injured, because the better your weapons, the more likely they are to be open, and less likely Anthony Richardson is to have to scramble and keep a play alive or take it over with his legs. So that's my bold prediction, is that they stockpile and retool their weapons.
So that ties a bow on the Colts season. We'll see what the offseason has in store and what they're able to do. And of course, we will track what they do in the offseason, and we'll come back, closer to the draft, and recap and do that kind of thing. So
draft begins April 25th.
Yes. So it'll be interesting to see what the Colts do
this year.
What's that?
Always interesting that I like that they're moving it around. I'm not sure where it's at this year, though.
Yeah, I can never remember. So we spent the last 40-plus minutes on a team that's not the postseason, unfortunately. Let's talk about the teams that are in the postseason. It's our NFL playoff preview. That's how we'll spend the last little bit of the podcast here. As the playoffs are set, we've got the AFC bracket. The Ravens are the AFC North champions, the number 1 seed. They get the bye this week. The Bills rally to win the AFC East. They grab the number 2 overall seed. They'll face the Steelers, who get the 7th seed. The Kansas City Chiefs are your AFC West champions yet again. They're the 3 seed, taking on the 6-seeded Dolphins. And then the Houston Texans are your AFC South champions. They're the 4th seed. They are the AFC South champions for the first time since 2019. They'll take on the 5th-seeded Cleveland Browns. In the NFC, the 49ers are your top seed winners of the NFC West. The Cowboys are your NFC East champions. They're locked in as the number 2 seed and will take on the 7th-seeded Packers. Your NFC North champions for the first time ever, the Detroit Lions. They are the number 3 seed and will face the Rams, who are the 6th seed. And then the Buccaneers win the NFC South and lock themselves in as the 4 seed. They'll host the 5th-seeded Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll give our wild card predictions. We'll give our dark horses, and then our Super Bowl prediction, or what we think the Super Bowl matchup will be. And so as far as the wild card weekend, this is what I'm going with. In the AFC, I'm going Bills over Steelers. These are 2 teams that have had solid stretch runs to get where they're at. The Steelers have won 3 in a row. The Bills have won 5 in a row. The Bills are at home. They do have the advantage at quarterback, and their winning streak includes wins over the Chiefs, Cowboys, and Dolphins, whereas the Steelers beat the Bengals without Burrow, the Seahawks, and the Ravens in Week 18 when Baltimore had everything locked up. So I think the wins for the Bills are a little bit more impressive. I like their resume a little bit more. If this were a college football playoff preview, I'd be like, hey, they're locked. I like what they have more quality wins down the stretch, than the other teams. So, I like what the Bills were able to do here at the end of the year. And of course, I think they're good for one playoff win at home. And I think they get it done. Whenever we do playoff previews, I don't like going chalk, and I really don't like that this is my one upset pick. But one of my lone upset picks. But I'm going Dolphins over Chiefs. I feel like an idiot. Mahomes always gets it done and gets the Chiefs to the AFC Championship game, but I don't know. Kansas City is 5-4 at home this season. They're 1-4 against playoff teams. Their one win is against the Dolphins. But it just doesn't seem like a typical Chiefs season. It just doesn't seem like a year that's like destined for this. It's not one of those years where, like, yes, you kind of doubt the Chiefs, but kind of deep down you have a feeling that the Chiefs are going to get it done. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not off the Chiefs. Like, could they get it done? Sure.
Okay, let me give you this to see if this changes your mind or changes your thinking at all. They're playing on Saturday in Kansas City.
Kansas City
is expecting a snowstorm and temperatures to being dropped down into the single digits, if not below 0.
I did see that.
Take that information as you might.
I
And
will. I'm still gonna go. I think
weather is going to impact a lot of these games this weekend.
right.
Just put it that way.
Yeah.
Maybe not a lot, a few.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, Miami didn't look great the last 2 weeks either. They got their doors blown off against the Ravens. Like I said, they lost the AFC East in the final week, which is why I'm kicking myself for this pick, and even furthermore for the whole weather situation. But I just have a hunch. I got the Dolphins winning. I think they get it done. And then I've got the Texans over the Browns. Cleveland beat Houston by 14, but that was without C.J. Stroud. Just a few weeks ago. That was the game Amari Cooper went off for 11 catches, 265 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's an effort I don't think will be replicated. And this time they do have C.J. Stroud, and I think that's going to be the difference maker. The Texans come out on top and get the win. So I've got the Bills, Dolphins, and Texans to win out of the AFC this weekend.
All right, so give me 2-seed Buffalo over Pittsburgh. Again, that snowstorm potential is going to be key. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers have the quarterback to be able to play through a snowstorm, especially a Buffalo-style snowstorm. So give me Buffalo in that one. That's their type of weather. Kansas City and Miami. This is a battle of the two teams that kind of sunk their way into the playoffs here.
That
Not
should be Super Bowl
football
contenders, but you don't feel good about either of them.
Yeah, but I'm going with Kansas City in this one. One, because of the weather potential, and two, Miami had to play everybody last week. Because they were playing for the AFC East title. They lost it, obviously. But Kansas City got to rest their guys. So that I think that's going to help. I hate to say it, but I feel like the Taylor Swift media frenzy is actually kind of worn on this team a little bit. So maybe having some time off, not having to play last weekend, got their minds refreshed, bodies refreshed, essentially like a bye week for them. So give me Kansas City in that one. The 4 and the 5 matchup between Houston and Cleveland. I'm going with the Cleveland Browns in this one. Right now, I mean, yes, CJ Stroud he's really good. He's a game changer. But I don't know. There's something magical right now going on with Joe Flacco. And I don't want to go chalk, and so far I have. But I just feel like Joe Flacco's playing in a climate controlled environment that may or may not have a leaky roof. But give me Cleveland just because I like the resurgence of Joe Flacco.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is, I mean, that was a tough one for sure. It was a toss up. I mean, Flacco, I guess, is turning the ball over. Like, he's throwing interceptions at like a 4% rate, which is like the league norm is like 1%. So, like, he's turning the ball over like a madman. I think that's going to come back to haunt him at some point. But yeah, I mean, could they win a couple of games in the postseason? Absolutely, because that has been a magical run that they've been on so far. Over on the NFC side, I've got the Cowboys over the Packers. Dallas is just a different team at home. They're 8-0 at Jerry World this season, averaging 37 points per game. They're 4-5 on the road, averaging 23 points per game. They're just a little different this season. They're a little different this season overall than they have been in years past, and I think they get the win. So they get the win there. Lions over Rams. Wouldn't it be wild if Matthew Stafford came back to Detroit and ruined the hearts of Lions fans and beat the Lions in Detroit? I don't think that happens though. The Lions have been making a lot of history this year. First 8-2 start since 1962. First NFC North title. And I think they'll get their first playoff win since 1991. And then I've got the Buccaneers over the Eagles. Yes, I think both as Super Bowl teams from last season could be bounced in week 1 of the postseason. The Eagles did beat the Buccaneers earlier in the season, but lost 4 of 5 down the stretch. And that end stretch for Philly includes getting blown out by the 49ers and Cowboys, as well as losses to the Seahawks, Cardinals, and Giants. So they did not look good down the stretch, and I just think, it's one of those seasons where, I don't think it's one of those losing streaks and one of those losing skids where you're going to look back on it and be like, man, remember when we all were out on the Eagles and they ended up going into the postseason and winning it all? Like, no, this is one of those losing skills where it's like, or losing streaks where it's like, put them out of their misery and let them go into the offseason and regroup, because this is just not the year.
Okay, 2-7. Give me Dallas in that one because you're right. Dallas is a totally different team playing in Jerry World. They're kind of on a team on a mission right now. I like the way they're playing. I think one of the most intriguing games is definitely this 3-6 matchup between Detroit and LA. Not because it's the Matthew Stafford game, but the Rams are just kind of sneaky good. I mean, yeah, they got the 6th seed. They still made the playoffs, but you know what? Give me the Rams in this one. Um, I like the Rams offense here and that Rams defense just to make enough disruption. Because, like you said earlier, this Detroit team is Jekyll and Hyde. Which team are you going to get? Are you going to get that one that looks like a Super Bowl contender, or are you going to get the one that's like, well, there's your Detroit Lions that I remember? So give me the Rams in this one. I really like the way that their offense is clicking right now. The 4-5 matchup, the game that we all wish we didn't have to see. To be honest, this one's probably going to be the worst out of all the
It's
playoff
on
games
Monday
this week.
night too.
Oh, it's the last one. Oh boy.
Hey, I mean,
Um,
I don't know why they choose that one because they literally chose Cowboys Buccaneers last year. So I don't know what the rule is about putting the NFC East loser versus the Buccaneers as your last game of the playoffs every year, but your last game of the wild card weekend every year. But that's
yeah.
the
Uh, you know what? Give me Philadelphia in this one. I have no real. I think Philadelphia can put it together enough to get past Tampa Bay. Because look, Tampa Bay won the division that is one of those divisions that was played the way it was played this year. Nobody wanted to win it. It was not a good division. Um, so give me Philadelphia on this one. At least Phil. Yeah, I mean, I think they can put it enough together to get by Tampa Bay, and then they'll get boat raced by whoever they play next week.
looking at some dark horses here. And when I looked at dark horse for the postseason, I looked at somebody who I think could legit win like 2 playoff games, not just win 1 playoff game and get bounced in the next round. Because that to me isn't really a dark horse. Like, because I think it sounds incredibly stupid to say, but like I think any one of these teams could win 1 playoff game. It's the playoffs. Anything can happen. We've seen crazier things happen. And anything can kind of happen in the NFL, but once you get outside of that week, that's kind of when, kind of becomes more real. So my AFC dark horse, I'm going with the Texans. What they've been able to do in C.J. Stroud's rookie season and D'Amico Ryan's first year as the head coach has been awesome. And in a year where the Chiefs aren't as strong, and where some of the other contenders, I mean, some of the other big name teams in the AFC are kind of down. You've got the Bills aren't as strong. You've got the Chiefs who aren't as strong. The Ravens. Who knows? Lamar Jackson is 1-3 in the playoffs. So even though the Ravens are good, who knows? What we'll see in the postseason if there is going to be any sort of a drop off with them. I don't think we will, but you never know. So if there's going to be a team that could potentially, if there's going to be a team that kind of, breaks that mold and kind of makes a little bit of a run, I think it can be the Texans. As far as the NFC, I'm going with the Lions. I know they're the literal number 3 seed, but I think we can say, I think it's safe to say that heading into the postseason, it seems like the 49ers are the field. They've got a ton of weapons on the offensive side of the ball with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta. The list goes on. Their defense can be suspect at times. There are a few head scratching losses as we've talked about, but on their resume. But I think if they can get it going, they can go on a little bit of a run. So I could see the heck. You know what? My preseason NFC Championship game was the Eagles over the Lions. So I've only got so much I have left now that the Eagles and Bengals have kind of disappointed me. So I'm gonna go. I'm still holding on to my Lions pick to potentially still hang on for them to go deep into the playoffs. So I think they're a dark horse to make some magic happen.
So my dark horse in the AFC, it's going to be kind of like your NFC dark horse. I'm going to say the Kansas City Chiefs. Um, yeah, how can Pat Mahomes be the quarterback of the dark horse team? Look, that offense has kind of fallen off of a cliff because there's hardly any play from their wide receivers. But this is the playoffs. It's a whole new ball game. This is a team that knows how to navigate through the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl. It's a up and down the roster. They know how to do it. So I think they can right that ship. And I don't know if they can win the AFC, but they can definitely make a run to the AFC Championship, I believe. So give me the Chiefs as my dark horse. On the AFC side, I'm going from the 6-3 again, but give me the LA Rams as the dark horse. I just feel like that there's a lot of things coming together for this team. Like I said, when I picked them to beat Detroit, I like where the offense is right now. That defense is being led by Aaron Donald is just it's good. This is, I mean, when you look at the bracket setup, this is a team that has a potential to make a good run.
And finally, we'll end things tonight on our Super Bowl matchup. Who we think is going to be playing in Las Vegas in the middle of February. And it's really hard not to go chalk, so I'm going to go chalk, and I kind of hate to do that, especially because there's kind of a theory going around that the color of the Super Bowl logo predicts who's going to be in the Super Bowl, and that's kind of the Super Bowl it looks like we're going to get because it's purple and red this year, and it looks like we're going to get 49ers and Ravens, and that's kind of what I'm leaning towards as well. I've got the 49ers over the Ravens in the Super Bowl. That's what I'm going to go with at the start of the playoffs here. Yes, the Ravens beat San Fran by 14 on the road on Christmas, but the 49ers outgained the Ravens by nearly 100 yards. They outpassed and outrushed Baltimore and had a better number in yards per play. But San Francisco turned the ball over 5 times. They had 5 picks. So I think, if they don't, as long as they don't have another night like that, they're in good shape to possibly hoist the Lombardi Trophy. So give me the 49ers over the Ravens. That's my Super Bowl pick heading into the postseason.
Oh, I really want to shake things up and say Kansas City makes it to the Super Bowl, because if we're talking conspiracy theories, would the NFL love to have some T Swift at the Super Bowl? Talk about the ratings. Everybody would be tuning in to see Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl. Everybody's been clamoring for Taylor Swift to perform in the halftime show. So this is about as close as you're going to get. But no, I have to go chalk on this one as well, because right now the Ravens and the 49ers are just playing the best football out of anybody. It seems like maybe outside of Buffalo, and I mean, Buffalo is strong, but it felt like a lot of other teams just kind of limped into the playoffs this year. I don't feel super confident about a lot of the other teams outside of Baltimore and San Francisco. But I am going to go Baltimore to win the Super Bowl. Their offense is good. Lamar Jackson is a different type of player. He's got some solid weapons, Odell Beckham Jr. there. That defense is for real. This team has played in a lot of tough games, a lot of tough environments. Put them in a situation where they're not having to worry about weather or anything like that. I think this is the Baltimore Ravens get the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson walks away as Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, it's years like this that are just so hard to gauge, because when it kind of seems like it's so obviously going to be one matchup, you're like, okay, am I going to be tricked into picking this matchup? Because sometimes when it seems so glaringly obvious what the championship's going to be, that's when you get completely, fooled, and it's something off the wall. We'll end up getting I saw one person say that the playoff script leaked, and then a graphic got leaked, and it was the Lions and Steelers. I was like, that would be kind of crazy.
Andy Pickett in the Super Bowl, Mason Rudolph.
I was gonna say I think it'd be Mason Rudolph versus Jared Goff. Hey, look, as long as we don't get another 13-3 debacle, I'm good with that.
Yeah,
because that was when the last time Jared Goff was in the Super Bowl. But yeah, it's so weird. Weird because you're okay, you want to go. You're okay. I don't. It's kind of seems like it's so obvious to like pick that chalk matchup, but like, yeah, this year it's like, because you're absolutely right. I mean, everybody else going in, like, you look at the 2 seed, the Bills. Like, okay, the Bills played really well down the stretch. I listed off the teams that they beat: the Cowboys, they beat the Chiefs. They had some big wins down the stretch. But I mean,
a month ago they were out of the playoffs.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's hard to ignore what they were, just a couple months ago. You've got the Chiefs who don't look as good. You've got the Texans who, had to rally. Looking through their schedule, I picked them confidently as my dark horse and to beat the Browns, but I was looking at some of their schedule too, and I was like, am I really picking this team to go deep into the playoffs? Because I kind of think they will, but also I saw some of their losses, and they're not great losses. And so
you got Dallas, who just does not have a good track record.
No. In the playoffs. You've got the Eagles who are struggling. You've got Baker and the Buccaneers who can't. You have to like really rally to beat the Panthers in 2 matchups against them. And you've got the Lions who, like you said, are Jekyll and Hyde, and that's absolutely correct. So it's like there's not a very good. It's going to Green Bay.
It's going to be Green Bay.
Oh, could you imagine? Could you imagine it's Green Bay versus San Francisco? Which, I mean, that would be literally the divisional round. Because, I mean, Green Bay would beat Dallas, and then it's the lowest seed versus the highest seed in the divisional round. Could you imagine, just after all the Aaron Rodgers stuff, right? Like, not even the current Aaron Rodgers stuff with the Jets. I'm just talking about, like, Aaron Rodgers could not beat San Francisco, right? He was always losing to San Francisco in the postseason. Wouldn't it be wild if, like, literally Jordan Love's first shot at San Francisco, he not only beats them, but he beats them in a year where, like, they're, like, almost unanimously picked to go to the Super Bowl. Like, everybody's on their train. Everyone's like, no one's going to beat San Francisco. They're, like, almost surely going to go. And, like, just in his first shot, he beats the Cowboys in the wild card round, and he beats the 49ers in the divisional round. And then it's the Packers versus whoever's left. And then they'll play then it'll be like, because I don't even know. Yeah, that playoff scenario just descends into chaos because you're like, okay, the first 2 seeds are out. Is it going to be like a Lions-Packers NFC Championship game? Because then that means the Lions would play the winners of the Bucks and Eagles. I think the Lions could beat the Bucks or Eagles right now. So yeah, I think in that scenario it'd be the Rams. It'd be the Rams and the Packers. I don't know if they played already this season, but that'd be pretty wild.
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
But yeah, that'd be pretty nuts. But so we'll see what happens. It's going to be a wild postseason for sure. I'm excited to finally get into postseason football. But that will do it for this week's edition of the Crash Course Podcast. Thank you guys all for hanging out. Remember, you can like us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go follow us at 3C Media Sports on X/Twitter. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel, 3C Media over there. If you're listening to us on the podcast channel, go over to YouTube, subscribe, ring the bell. Head on over to TikTok as well. Follow us over on there, 3C Media there. And remember, you can listen to us on the podcast apps. If you're watching us on TikTok or on YouTube, you can go over to the podcast apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course Podcast. You can find me at Crash Course FM on Twitter. B. Scott, where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87.
Next week,
I'm always going to call it Twitter. Always.
Yeah, right. It's just so weird. Like, yeah, it's like, X is just so weird to me. I don't get it. But next week we'll be talking some college hoops. We'll be diving into that as we're about halfway through the college basketball season. So we'll be gearing up for that. It'll be a lot of fun talking some basketball. But until then, have a good week, everybody.